Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TIC Talks. Today, I'm joined by Frankie Ng. Frankie is the Vice President of TIC Council, going for the second mandate this year. And he's also the CEO of SGS. Frankie, we have the privilege to host you today. You are one exceptional leader. You've been at the helm of the world's leading company of our sector, that is SGS. And I'm hoping that in today's interview, we'll get to know a little bit more about you and above all, to get your invaluable perspective on topical issues that are relevant to our sector, as be it sustainability, be it digitalization. So we'll have a bit of a conversation. Sure. And I invite everyone that is connected, following us, to also join me in this chat with Frankie. There is a section in the comments where I can see your questions if you raise them. So you're more than welcome to ask your questions, and I'll pass them on to Frankie. So let's start. Thank you so much, Frankie, for accepting to talk TIC with me today and the audience. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Frankie?
So hi, hi Hanane. Hi everyone, happy to be here. Happy to join this TIC Talk and share some of my views on some of your coming questions, and feel free to ask questions through Hanane as well. So who's Frankie? Okay, let me give a quick background. I was born in Hong Kong, 1966. You want to know the exact date? And but I grew up in Switzerland. So I moved to Switzerland when I was 8 years old, and I've done all my school in Switzerland as well as the UK. So I've been with the SGS group for the past 30 years. I joined SGS in 1994. It's a long way back. And I have been the CEO of the SGS group for about 8 years now, 2015 to now. I started in SGS as the head of consumer unit in Hong Kong, China. So I managed the consumer good unit in the SGS for quite some years, also managed the industrial services in the SGS group. I worked in Asia, I worked in the US, and I worked in Europe. In terms of family, I have two daughters, they're twins. So they are 23 years old, so out of the house now. And in terms of hobby, I would say if I don't work, would be hiking and running. These would be the two typical things I do in the Swiss mountains.
Yeah, you're in an ideal location to do that. So.
Absolutely.
So, Frankie, in the past years, you have been instrumental, you and SGS, in the setup of the TIC Council. You have personally been part of the task force that has led the merger discussion with SEOC. So, very simple question: why?
You know what, the TIC industry evolved in a lot of very complex value chain. There's a lot of stakeholders, commercial, public, and the TIC Council is one of the stakeholders. So for me, a strong associations is essential to promote our voice, to share our views, to share expertise, and to defend our market positions against and together, and contribute with all those stakeholders. So this is why I thought from day one that we need to have a strong industrial associations. Obviously, back then we had two major associations with SEOC and the IFIA, and the merger of the two has created TIC Council. So I believe that the TIC Council has, as a young association since a few years, has created a lot of inroads compared to the previous two associations that we had. Each one of them did a fantastic job, but the TIC Council now is much more focused with all the key players of the industry working together. And I'm very impressed by the work that has been done by the TIC Council, yourself, Hanane, and your team, on all those key topics such as ESG, digitalizations, and many other regulatory topics that the European Union, China, India, and the US is working on. That is part of the strength of the Industrial Association, the TIC Council.
Yeah, thank you, Frankie. And obviously, this is thanks to the support of the members that are working in the various committees that we're progressing. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Now, you've touched on one of the key topics that we're addressing, and that's sustainability, or in other terms now we're talking about ESG. It is one of the hottest topics that we deal with, given the legislative landscape in Europe and in other parts of the world. This is our core business, and this is what we do. This being said, what do you think is the challenge that we need to address as an industry to be able to actively contribute to shift the global economy towards more inclusiveness, fairness, and less environmental impact?
Yeah, I think these two aspects, which are pretty similar. One, we need to look at ourselves as an industry. So you cannot preach for the others to be sustainable if we are ourselves not doing the work to become more sustainable. So in SGS, well, often we call people, planet, performances, but a lot of our peers has different views on how this should be. As commercial entity, we are always too focused in the past, and this is the way we have evolved as an industry. This is in line with the external factors, based focus on performances. But today, we need to rebalance the way we look at performances together with the way we look at the planet, and also the people that works for us, that we influence as a company in the local community which we operate. So planet, people, performances has to have a certain equilibrium. I don't have a miracle solution for that because it's so complex and it depends on the maturity and the vision of each one of the company. It also depends on the society in which we evolve, which is different in terms of the vision on people, planet, and performances. But what is sure is that each one of us need to do small steps already today. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the holistic approach. It's not about a lot of small steps, because it's not one single solution fits all. But if everybody takes those small steps and start to contribute toward this ultimate goal, I think the planet will evolve. Something for the external market. If we're looking at the internal, the TIC industry, how we need to evolve, the market does exactly the same. The market also needs to start to figure out our customers, our stakeholders, how we're going to combine performances, planet, and people in whatever sequence into a strategic vision of their long-term strategy. Because the sustainability aspect is accelerating, and the companies need to start to change the way they think about their strategy by incorporating all those ESG, people, planet, performances into one single equation. The TIC Council has a lot to bring because we understand all the challenges is out there in those aspects. We have services that helps our customers and the stakeholders to evolve, to improve. We also help them to educate them to the way it goes. Because a lot of company actually wants to do something, but they just don't know how. Because when you look at ESG or sustainability, it's a quite daunting task when you look at it on a blank piece of paper. And this is where I think TIC Council can bring a lot of TIC industry in general, can bring a lot in terms of educations and in terms of supporting our stakeholders to evolve from where they are to where they want to be, or a better place in terms of those small steps in terms of evolutions.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely spot on, Frankie. But this being said, I mean, and focusing specifically on this guidance that potentially we can support, or you, our members, could support your customers with. Could you elaborate a bit more on the specific contribution that the TIC sector can make to become, if you want, this enabler towards a transition or sustainability transition for the economy?
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of services we're offering, so I'm not going to go through all those services. But at the onset of this journey, I think education is a critical part because we need to educate the market. Some of them is already very, very advanced on that, but some of those are not, and the market is quite large. Our stakeholders is quite large. And we need to educate this stakeholder group on exactly how to start to progress. Again, the first small steps that goes into this journey. And very often, the most difficult is those first steps that you have to do to start to embark into this journey. But in the long term, I think the TIC industry and TIC Council and the members and the other TIC companies, I think what is important for us to create this trust and this transparency across the value chain. This is, I think, what we can bring the most to this value chain when people start to embark, because each one of those companies will have a lot of interaction with their own stakeholders. How do they ensure that what they're doing is fitting into the next chain of this long value chain? And how do they ensure that everybody plays these games toward the same goal? And I think the TIC industry is well positioned to help them to figure out, to create this trust, to build this trust between the different stakeholders within this value chain, also to create a transparency for them to be able to look at it. And a lot of our services, starting with educations and training, is part of these evolutions where we're going to help them to have a better understanding, building trust around their own value chain, and having this transparency to ensure that this trust is based on some factual matters rather than just on the discussion between different partners.
Yeah. You've been using the word trust, and it's indeed a key word and the main commodity of our sector. Now, if we go back to the TIC industry, how do you have trust in the future of the TIC industry? How do you envision the future of the TIC industry, and what other emerging trends do you see that could shape our role?
Yeah, I've been 30 years in the TIC industry, so I'm pretty sure I have a lot of trust about what comes next. I would say it's difficult to say what comes next on the TIC industry, because it's really depend on a lot of different evolutions, mega trend of society, global economy cycles, geopolitical situations. So these will define the priority of the industry. So it's difficult to say. But beside ESG, is one constant that we have seen clearly over the past many years. It's also digitalizations. I think this is one aspect that we're going to see in terms of evolutions, and how we as TIC players is going to adapt ourselves to these evolutions is certainly a challenge that we need to face and look at. So for me, if you look at the evolutions, all those economic situations, geopolitical situations will come and go, but these two patterns, these longer term, will be constant. It's really ESG that we spoke about earlier, and digitalization will come as the next topic that the TIC industry has to tackle.
Yeah, and so you see this rapid pace of technological change that's happening around us. Do you believe that this space is going to pose a risk, or rather an opportunity for our sector? And what would you recommend to TIC organizations or maybe customers to adapt and stay ahead of these changes?
Yeah, it's always a combination of both risk and opportunities. So I think technology will disrupt some of our older services, more traditional services, but it will also give the opportunities for us to get into new services that the existing technology was not able to enable. And new technology will allow us to move into different new solutions, is more fitting in terms of value creation for our customers and our stakeholders. But what is important is innovations, in my view. If you stay static, then you will be disrupted more and more by evolution of technology. So we need to embrace the evolution of technology. We need to embrace the technology in terms of innovations. And with that, we'll be able to be one step ahead of time. If you talk about digital specifically, for instances, you look at what we've been doing up to now is that we use data, digital process, to enhance our physical service strategy, whether these physical services is testing, inspection, certifications. As the technology evolves, at one point in time, the question would be for the TIC industry to use our physical services, testing, inspection, certification, to enhance our digital data strategy. The difference is slim, but the implication on the way we think about the way we structure our services, we structure our aim, we structure our strategy is quite fundamental. So this is one example of how we can embrace change of evolutions of technology from the more physical to the digital to the data. And we talk about AI in the future, and all that need to be embraced, and it's up to us to think about how we can innovate in that, how we change our strategy by combining this kind of digital evolution to our core long-term strategy.
And so to stay on the topic you just mentioned, AI, as developments in technology and in AI, will continue obviously to reshape industries. What is the impact that you would foresee on the job market and workforce in the TIC sector? How can we ensure just an inclusive transition for employees?
Well, it is certainly a critical question. We usually are passionate about technology, but we forget very often the social cost, the positive and negative of technology. Here we talk about the risk of the negative aspect. But at the end of the day, technological evolution has always existed. I mean, you look at if I take SGS as an example, we started 140 plus years ago about quality control in terms of quantity check only. Today, we have a portfolio is much more complex, and we're using the evolution of technology to help us to create value propositions that is fitting our customers' need is much more complex. So I think nowadays, the speed of disruptions and speed of change of technology has increased, but the fundamental stays the same. There will always be disruption coming with new technology. What I think we need to do is really to embrace this, as I said earlier, and to ensure that we can find a balance between technology and expertise. So we have a pool of workforce in the TIC industry that has fantastic expertise in different domains, in different technical domain, administrative domain. And how do we combine this expertise together with technological evolutions to create a value proposition stronger than the two pieces discomposed is where I think it has to be. This also means that we as an employer has to focus, and not just SGS, but the industry, has to focus on retraining and providing the key skill set in terms of retraining of our colleagues in the field so that they can embrace this evolution as well together with us. It's not just about the company thinking this, it's really us acting to ensure workforce into this industry has this evolution together with them. And it's not just about technology, it's also about ESG, methodology, it's about a lot of our technology and the industry that we need to, expertise that we need to help them to evolve. And this is part of the planet, people, performances equation that we need to strike.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're raising this, Frankie, and I'm hoping that some accreditation bodies are also following this discussion, because it's something that we need to address as well jointly with them in terms of ensuring this this transition for the sector as a whole, for the quality infrastructure ecosystem.
Absolutely, we'll not be succeeding by ourselves. As I said, is the complex value chain, there's a lot of stakeholders, and each one of us need to be contributing to this value chain, and each one of us has to play a key point to play within these evolutions.
Absolutely. So for me, there is just one last question. I don't know what's going on LinkedIn, to be honest. So I don't know if there are any questions or not. I'm looking at my colleague here, but oh my. I don't see them. So one last question from me, then I'll look at what's going on the screen. You started your career at SGS, as you mentioned, 30 years ago, and now here you are. So what was your idea of the sector back then, and how did you see it evolve over time? And above all, what would be your call to action to the other captains of the TIC industry?
30 years ago, when I started in SGS, I was handling the complaint department of SGS in Hong Kong. So my view of the TIC industry was just complaints, and I was wondering why. So because I was handling the department of complaints, so I guess this is the logical. But joke apart, I think it's been an exciting journey. I think the industry has evolved, as I mentioned. If you look at many years ago, a lot of the larger corporations in the TIC industry started with services that was quite basic and manual, and today we all use technology, going from a nuclear to a cyber to a life sciences, and you can name all the industries, and we are in one way or the others as a TIC industry being involved. So I think it's important that we continue this innovation, we continue to create this value for those value chain and the stakeholders within it. My only comments to my colleagues and peers in the TIC industry is let's continue to collaborate. I think for us to be able to continue this journey, competition is important, but I think there are topics in which we as an industry should continue to collaborate, because we can influence society, we can influence the way we create value for society. And I think these, under the scope of ESG, or the balance between planet, people, and performances, I think by collaborating more will help us to create a better value for what we try to achieve as an association as well as an industry.
Super wonderful. I know you're on a tight schedule, Frankie, so I'm quickly going to scan through the questions. There is here one question from Harrison Coltas. He's basically saying you are an inspiration to everybody in the TIC industry. He wonders who inspires you.
Who inspires me? Wow.
Yes.
It's difficult to say, but I would always say from day one is my father. You know what? I'll tell you the story. My father is uneducated. He never been to school. He was born in a small village near Shanghai. During the war, Second World War, and he made all his way down to Hong Kong and to Switzerland, and he never looked backwards. He never regretted all the actions he has taken, and he always taught us to look forward and just to take the next steps, and with a lot of challenges. So when I look at the way I've been looking at my career path compared to the difficulties he's been going through in his journey to where he was born in China in the 30s, to where he ended up in Switzerland in a few years back. So I was taking him as my role model, and hopefully I would have done part of what he has done. So besides that, I don't have any external role model. There's so many people, it's inspiring, but I will go back to my family.
That's a wonderful role figure, Frankie. How do you see evolution of inspection services with regards to the increase of responsibilities trade companies are often willing to transfer on inspection companies? Ooh, this is a question from Gael Vittori. I've heard about this topic since I joined IFIA, and I see it's still on top of mind of people.
Sure. I mean, again, if you work in the TIC industry, you know there's always a fine line between an inspections and insurance. So a lot of our customers believe that the inspection might be a cheap insurance policy. So I think number one, in the way we present the services, we need to be clear that we're not an insurance company, but we're an inspection company in this specific field that you're talking about. There's no question about the evolution of these liabilities. At the end of the day, our customers rely on inspections to ship their goods. There is a certain risk involved into the way we're doing our sampling, we're doing this inspection. There are certainly cases where the quality expected from the inspection is not there, so there's certain liabilities on that. But I think also a question of us continuing to improve this inspection methodology by using more technological advance. For instance, in one of the issues in the past that I've seen, just to give an example, labeling on the so on, the user's manual is in the different languages. Then if you don't go through this properly, you could have issues, especially when you have something written on the t-shirt and so on. So today, there are technology where the SGS group and some of our peers are using, where with an iPhone, or mobile phone, we can scan this text and just have the translation direct, or just to spot out whether it is spelling mistake. So this also helps to decrease the risk. So my view is the fight between our customers wanting to pass the risk on to us will always, and us rejecting this will always exist. It's up to us to create procedures and use technologies to help us to enhance the value that we can create with our inspections, and to ensure that we will provide the right value to our customers with the minimum risk, and avoiding any kind of those lower quality product that's being shipped.
Yeah. Anyway, the topic is still addressed at large in the commodities committee. So by all means, Gael Vittori, reach out to the secretary of the committee, and we can provide as well, either take you on board to work with us or provide with additional information. There is the other questions, Frankie. We have just a couple of minutes, and I promise I'll release you. There is one question from Sandra Moan saying, sustainability and quality acts as two sides of a coin. What methodology can this correlation be balanced?
Quality and sustainability, I'm not sure whether it is two sides of the coin. I think they are, in any way, two sides of the coin is always interconnected. So I believe that we can create quality in a sustainable way. Technology, we talk a lot about technology, will help us to do that. Maybe today in some product is difficult, but as we understand more material sciences, we understand more technology, I think we'll be able to create and produce goods that is sustainable, that is high level qualities. In fact, you look at all the money, the investment is being put into recycling, is that recycling of materials. But at the end of the day, one of the ways to continue this sustainability journey and to be able to create and innovate into product is to use the ones that is already on the market. So there's a lot of effort being put into recycling. The quality of the recycled product, raw materials become higher and higher. So this is just one example where you can flip the sustainability vision into a quality product. The two does not, in my view, has to be separate, and you can do both in one vision.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One last question, and we can close the talk. And that's from Frankie Wilkinson, who's asking you, what has motivated you to join the TIC industry when you first started? So taking complaints, and what motivates you today?
I think when I joined the TIC industry, I was in Hong Kong. So obviously, the consumer goods sector was something that is interesting to me. I come from an E&E background, so engineering and quality control was something that is of interest to me, and this is where SGS, certainly being one of the larger players on the market, was quite appealing to me. So I joined SGS through this role. What is exciting to me today, or what motivates me, is the people. When I talk about performances, people, planet. Not that performance is not important. I don't want my shareholders to think that this is not something that is critical. But I think people is what I'm focusing on, because I work with great people in the industry as well as in SGS. I think in the service industry, the sense of what we do starts with the people. So the way I'm interacting with my network, the way I'm interacting with the industry is really what is motivating me. And from those people, then we branch out into planet and performances, which is not the result, but part of the strategy. It's part of the evolution of what I think is exciting. So the people side is always the one that is exciting.
Wonderful. It has been really a pleasure to have you today, Frankie. Thank you so much. I promised you no more than 30 minutes, so it's no more than 30 minutes. And big thanks as well to the audience that following us live. Thank you for interacting with us. TIC Talks will take a short summer break, and we will be back in September. So again, big thanks to you, Frankie. And well, I'll see you soon to continue this adventure of TIC Council.
Thank you, Hanane, and thank you to everyone, and hope you have a nice summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice summer, everyone. Bye.
Bye.